because we have a smaller roster, we're really focused on grooming that client and getting that client ready for the next step. We're looking at the big picture. We're looking at, is this job going to be the right job for their career?
From the cubicle to the lab, the studio to the war room, climbing the corporate ladder, or joining a scrappy startup, experience a day in the life of the jobs you want. This is the Experience a Diddle podcast.
We interview professionals, entrepreneurs, and recent grads to inspire you to gain experience beyond the classroom and launch a career of your own.
We're your hosts, Krista Bowe
and Matt Poe.
Welcome to the A Diddle episode in the Shooting for the Stars series with Bicoastal talent manager Sherry Kayne. In this episode, we're going to experience her daily tasks in different time zones as she juggles work for her clients in Los Angeles and New York. From the hills of Hollywood to the concrete jungle of New York, Sherry works hard to get gigs for her clients in the entertainment industry. Let's jump right in.
So my name is Sherry Kayne. I am a talent manager at the Green Room Management. We have offices in New York and LA. I actually am a bicoastal manager. I go back and forth. And I represent actors, performers, singers, some YouTube stars in various areas, TV, film, theater. And I basically work to get them their next jobs, their next bookings, and really help them throughout their career.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Green Room?
The Green Room is a company based in LA, and we are made up of 5 different managers. We've all have different experiences on how we got there. Some of us worked at big companies, big agencies, big management companies. I myself was a lawyer. We have some of us represent actors. We have somebody who just represents actors and talent for appearances like Comic-Cons and things like that. We have another manager who also, along with being a talent manager, is also a producer.
How many people are on your roster?
I have about 50 clients on my roster. It fluctuates.
Can you just tell us a little more specifically about your roster? Like what areas of the entertainment industry do your clients work in and how you kind of got them, I guess?
Sure. My roster is comprised of, I would say, talent from ages 6 to 30. I have one talent who's a little older. Most of my talent comes from referrals.
Okay.
I do get submissions, and I go through each submission very carefully and determine if they would be a good fit for my roster. In essence, if I don't have too many people of that type, I kind of go by the Noah's Ark rule. I don't like more than 2 of a kind. Maybe 3 if somebody's working, pretty consistently, and I need another person to fill that gap. And most of my roster is working. They are working on television shows. They are working on Broadway shows. They are working in film. I have the youngest Academy Award nominee ever on my roster, Quivenjane Wallace, who you might recall from Beasts of the Southern Wild, and then she did Annie with Jamie Foxx and Cameron Diaz. Wow. So I have a little boy right now who is a series regular on the new Netflix hit series, The Haunting of Hill House.
Wow.
I have a little girl who's in School of Rock. So they're all over the place. Film stars, TV stars, and Broadway stars.
That's great.
And I had another client who originated the role of young Elsa in Frozen.
Oh,
so we get our share of New York Broadway stars too.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Another role that's similar to, but different than Sherry's, is the role of a talent agent. Let's put to bed the confusion between the two once and for all.
And it's a good question because I feel that most people don't know the difference between a manager and an agent. An agent has a larger roster, generally speaking, than a manager. They don't get the time. They don't have the time to get to know every client as well as a manager because their roster is so large. Whereas I would have 2 of a kind on my roster, they would have 20 of a kind on their roster.
Wow, so 10x.
So, agents are great. They're really amazing in the business. They close up a deal. They are looking for the next job for a client, but they're not necessarily focusing on the career. The manager is focusing on the career. We look to cultivate, opportunities for them. We look outside of the box sometimes. I go looking for other opportunities. Maybe I see somebody on a TV show and my client looks like the younger version, and I might just reach out to them and say, hey, if you're ever doing a flashback scene or something like that. Like I try to think outside of the box because we have a smaller roster. We're really focused on grooming that client and getting that client ready for the next step. We're looking at the big picture. We're looking at, is this job going to be the right job for their career?
Today, Sherry's in LA and her alarm goes off at 6:30 PST. At 10 a.m. Eastern is when the breakdown is released. A breakdown is a list of roles that casting directors are looking to fill for upcoming projects that they have coming down the pipeline.
They start releasing them, and I start going through them and looking at each role that there is and thinking about who on my roster fits that role. And so I start submitting my clients for each of those roles in hopes that I will get them an audition. So that would be the first thing I start to do. And doing any follow-up from the night before as well. If there are leftovers, that, auditions that I hadn't pitched on and things like that.
And there's a lot going on, so I'm imagining there's new roles every day.
There are new roles every day. And some days are busier than other days, but yeah.
Do they come out as a specific time, or is it just all day?
All day long.
Okay.
They start coming through. And because I'm a bi-coastal manager, they start 10 in the morning and they end somewhere at 9 at night for New York time. And so I'm literally up all day, not just submitting, but pitching. And the pitching is really what takes more time than submitting.
The casting notice, how are these formatted? Like, what's exactly written on these notices?
It will list the project, the producers, the date, the period of time that it's going to be filming or shooting. It will list the roles that they're looking for, the age, the ethnicity, things like that.
So you had mentioned that agents and managers only have access to the bigger roles in Actors Access. Why is that? Is there ever a chance that a person that doesn't have an agent or manager would have access to that? Or is that just like...
Well, if they're casting a wide net, like Disney does this a lot for the kids, they'll look everywhere. They want to find the next big star. So they'll send out a casting open call, basically, and they'll allow everybody to apply and upload their tapes and send it to them. But generally speaking, casting has enough to go through with people who are represented, so they don't want to go through everybody who's submitting, their brother or their uncle or whoever. They just want the actors who are really, deep into the business at this point.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
but they also, the breakdowns that are out for the actors who don't have representation at the time, they're a good way for them to get started in the business. Sometimes maybe it's a student film and you can end up with some good reel for that. If you work on a student film, it'll show a representative what you're capable of doing. You can send it along to the representative and maybe then they'll bring you on board.
All right. So you're sending it all through this system, or do you send separate emails?
I send separate emails too.
Okay.
Some managers and agents, I guess, might just submit, but I don't think it's enough to get their attention. So I like to do an email pitch usually that includes a little bit about the actor, what they've worked on. It includes a headshot, generally speaking. It could include a resume. It could include just specifics about roles that they've worked on. It might include other information that makes this particular client good for this role, things like that. So I send an email pitch. Hopefully they get alerted. And then I also, follow up on those pitches.
Okay, cool. So sounds like a sales job almost.
It really is. I'm selling my clients. Right.
At this point, are you sending video of your clients too?
I am.
Okay.
And if my client hasn't done projects that have resulted in a reel yet, that's what we call the actors' works that are put together, a reel, then oftentimes if they've done a self-tape for me, sometimes casting can't call everyone in the room. Or sometimes the actor is located in a place where they can't go in the room. Maybe they're in Austin and they can't be seen in LA. So oftentimes they will ask for a self-tape, and you send them the script to go over, and they put themselves on tape. When that happens, I keep all of those self-tapes. And if there's one that particularly stands out as a great acting clip, or one that stands out as one that would be terrific for this particular project, I might send that along too, so they can get an idea if they don't have a reel, or in addition to a reel, if it makes sense.
So you as a manager, are you putting these reels together for them? Do you find companies that do that professionally? How does that work?
Both.
Okay.
There are times that I have put reels together for my clients. I've pulled their materials from shows. I just had to do one for a client who was on Criminal Minds and Barry and The Good Doctor, and I put it all together in a nice little reel, and now we're using it as a part of the pitch, and I sent it to the agent as well. Sometimes they get it done professionally. I'm not a professional, but I can do it well enough that, they're not necessarily looking for the best looking reel. They just want to see what the client can do. Casting can determine. They don't need all the whistles and bells.
So Sherry gets the breakdown of the roles, and she pitches all of her clients on her roster that she thinks fit what they're looking for. They do know from time to time there may be roles where they'll compete against someone else on Sherry's roster, but she does her best to keep the number of conflicts to a minimum.
The object of it is to try not to have too many of one kind on your roster. And when they're looking for multiple ethnicities, it's not fair also that, you can't have all different types of 11-year-old girls, who would fit the breakdown. And you only have one 11-year-old girl for that role, because there'll be times that they're very specific. So you need to cover all different areas.
When you do submit the role, that's behind the scenes, and you don't relay that you submitted them for this role until they get it or get an answer back?
It depends. Sometimes my clients will ask me. The actor network is very big and aggressive in that they all talk to each other. And they all know what's going on all the time. And there are websites where parents can look on board to see, like this website, there's like a Parents for Child Actors website where they can look on board to see what's going on. And sometimes I laugh because sometimes the information is totally incorrect, because they think they know what's going on, but they don't.
So interesting.
My kid's already booked it or something like
Right.
that. But sometimes they have the information before us because their friend is the one who booked the role. So,
wow.
There's definitely those kinds of things that parents and actors will look at. Generally speaking, when they've asked me about a role, they've already been submitted and pitched, because I go through everything and look at my entire roster. So I'm often telling them, yes, I submitted and pitched you, I'll follow up, or something like that.
It's now 10 a.m. on the West Coast, and Sherry meets with her team at the green room to touch base and update each other with their clients' progress. When she's on the East Coast, she's Skyping in. In these meetings,
we discuss what's going on weekly for all of our clients. We might be discussing what jobs they're working on, what callbacks they've had, what producer sessions they've had. We might discuss other things that we need to talk about, like if I say, oh my gosh, I see this role and it's perfect for my client, but I don't really know this casting director. Can you put me in touch? Or if there's an agent I want them to sign with, because that's another thing we do. We place our clients with agents.
okay.
Can you make the intro? So we all work together to make sure that our clients are getting the best team together.
Nice.
So and the other thing is that, any given time, if there's an urgent situation and I'm in a meeting, my clients can know that they can reach out to anyone else in my office, and they'll have the information because we've discussed what's going on with each client during the meeting. Whenever anybody gets an audition or a callback, we send out an email to everybody in the office. So anyone can jump in and really help out. But it really doesn't happen that often because I do make myself very available to my clients.
Okay.
So we discuss all of those things. Sometimes we bring in industry professionals. We might bring in a publicist. A publicist becomes a good tool, a good person to have on your team at a certain point. You have to really, have gotten a nice role in a film or on a series regular role or something like that. And in order to get the most out of that role and generate the most interest and what you've done, they might bring on a publicist who will help them make an EPK, which is an electronic press kit. So that could be sent around along with pitching materials for different things, or they will help get you on the carpet for certain events that make sense where you can talk about the projects that you have. They might help you get in articles on the internet or in, or magazine, whether it's digital or whether it's a published magazine. So, or interviews on a TV show, whether it's Good Morning America or something like that.
I have a question about the green rooms specifically, I guess. So you as a manager, you're representing your clients, you're making sure you're getting the work for your clients and stuff like that. How important is it for the green room as a company to get, those roles signed, those deals closed, things like that, I guess, from their side? Like, is there a certain quota that they have to meet per year? Or like,
it is that way in a lot of the big agencies. It's not that way in our group. Our group, we are all focused and we all trust each other to get the job done. We happen to work really well together and we're all nice people. This in an industry that can kind of be pretty not so nice to each other. Yeah. The managers that have started the business have seen that side of the business as well because they've been in big companies, and we get to be really thoughtful about who we want to bring on as far as, other managers and make sure it's a good fit. And we're really, it's just a very good work environment.
Now it's 11 a.m. Pacific, and Sherry begins making phone calls. She's calling casting directors. She's calling potential clients. She could be calling agents for her clients as well. Anyone she needs to speak to get her clients the best gigs possible, she's calling. The conversations with casting directors go a little something like this.
Hey, I just pitched this kid. He'd be great. He sings, he dances. I know you're looking for a singer. He's the next big thing. You should really check him out. I'll send, I'll resend you the email if you want me to. Please, I think you'd be missing out if you didn't call him in for the audition.
Do they pick up the phone most of the time?
Yeah, they always pick up the phone, but they, sometimes they're busy and they can't necessarily talk. They say they'll make a note of it. That's why I believe in the email pitch over the phone call pitch first, because then they could look at it at their leisure and then decide if they want to call the person in. But so I will call casting. I will call agents if I have a client that I want them to see. Somebody who maybe is on a TV show, just got a role on a TV show and has only had a manager to this point, and I think they're ready to add an agent to their team. Sometimes I'll call in, or somebody who's got a theatrical agent but doesn't have a commercial agent, so I can reach out to commercial agents to see if they'll see my clients, things like that. I also might make phone calls to companies if I have a social media client and I want them to say one of my clients writes a jingle or something. And I want them to work together or something like that for the company, maybe either reaching out to them for a campaign of some kind for their company, or even just doing collaborations on Instagram. I mean, those are a big deal right now. Yeah. There are so many. When you look on Instagram and you see sponsored by somebody who has high social media numbers and they've got a deal with Wonder Bread or something like that, you can take that social media number and use it to your advantage because they are willing to pay to have a post, a single post. So things like that. So I have to do a little bit of research on that end often, find out what brands the client feels good about, find out whether it's a fit with the company that, I'm pitching for, because it really has to fit into both of the lifestyle.
I want to talk a little more about those social media pitches. You mentioned that if your client has big numbers, like how important is followers on social media, like for clients on getting gigs, and like how do you feel about that metric?
I think it's important. It depends on what you are looking for out of the industry. I mean, some people want to be stars, and that's all they care about. Mm-hmm. The actors who are really concerned about the process more, they shouldn't concern themselves with that because they're going to book the roles based on their talent. I still believe that. And honestly, if you book something with a big studio, the followers will come. They'll start following you. One thing I can say is that whatever numbers you get, it should be organic. It shouldn't be bought or paid for because it needs to be people who are going to be engaged by the content, not somebody who's going to just follow because they got paid to. And then, and I think that the companies can see that.
So then on these phone calls, you're also speaking to potential clients. What are those conversations like?
Some of those calls are funny. Like, sometimes people will just be like, I want you to hire me. And I'm like, I don't hire people. Some people really don't know what they're doing when they're getting started in the industry.
Can you just give an example of what a successful call would be like and what a not so successful call be like? Is there any examples that really stick out in your mind that you were like, what was this person thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it's the people who call up and say, my daughter's a performer. We want you to hire us, or we want to work with you. And I ask, so what has your daughter done? Well, she really hasn't done anything. She just likes to perform. She's always performing in my house. And that shows me that they really haven't done much homework or gotten her in those first steps, whether it be, take a dance class, be involved in a community theater or even a kids program, take an acting class, those kinds of things. At least I know that you're working on something towards something, but somebody who just says, my daughter's so cute, you need to see her. That doesn't tell me anything about your daughter or what they're capable of. So there are definitely, and then a good call would be, hey, I heard about you through so-and-so, or even I didn't hear about you through so-and-so, but I'm looking to get, a new manager. I've worked on this. I've worked on that. I'm creating my own content. I'm making my own opportunities, but I need somebody else there as part of the team. And they'll send me materials that they have or even that they've done on their own, You have to be a self-advocate. If you're not passionate about what you do, how can I be passionate?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. I mean, if there's no effort or passion, then I can't keep you or have you on my roster.
You're looking for initiative.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I have to let people go from time to time because I saw something out there, and it's a tough business. So people, they can fizzle out, and they can decide that they're really not, into it as much and really put in a half-hearted effort. So then at some point we have a conversation. I say, what's going on? Do you want to do this? It doesn't sound that way. Maybe you need a break. And we have to have that conversation. Those are the hard talks. So, and the hardest part for me is turning someone away or letting somebody go. Because I really, I just care about the actor and the client, and I really want them to do well. But if you're not working hard at it, then I can't do my job well. And it doesn't reflect good on me or anyone else on my roster if I send casting an actor who's not prepared.
What would the next steps be if the call goes well?
The next steps would be we either set up a meeting or a Skype meeting, depending on where I am and where they are and how soon I need to have them as part of my team.
So we mentioned earlier in this episode, Sherry pitches all of her clients that fit the casting director's requirements from the breakdown, right? And she does this because she needs as many chances as possible to get her clients booked, because when they get booked, they get paid. And when they get paid, she gets paid. Let's learn how Sherry makes a living in this line of work.
When you do sign on a new client to your roster, are you getting paid salary with the company?
That's a good
and
question.
Then how does that all work? I guess the money side.
The answer is no. If my clients aren't working, then I'm not getting paid.
Gotcha.
So I am entitled to a manager isn't governed the same way an agency is governed. They have specific rules they have to follow. An agency generally takes 10% commission. With a manager, they can take anywhere from 10 to 25%. And if you end up needing an attorney on board, which you do for big deals, like most series regular roles are 7-year contracts. Like you have to get bounced up in your earnings every year, things like that, where you need to really look at the contract specifics and you bring on an attorney, and an attorney generally takes 5%. So by the time all is said and done, it could end up costing a lot of money. For that reason, I am generally, I keep my rates low at 10%, because if they have an agent on board or an attorney on board, I'm not doing the negotiating. Either the agent is or the attorney is.
So out of that 10%, if you do have to take on the attorney, do they take the 5% away from your 10%?
No,
or
that's
is it
an
then a
additional.
total? It's an additional.
That's an additional.
Oh, okay.
But if there is no attorney on board and there is no agent on board, I take a 15% commission because I'm negotiating the contract.
Great.
So that's how
good
that
to know.
works. If anybody ever tells you you need to pay this much money to come with a manager, run. Or an agent.
Yeah.
You should never have to pay any money. You shouldn't have to go to any of their photographers. If you're getting charged in any way, run. It's not the way the business is supposed to work. I'm only taking commission on what is brought
the
in.
deals.
And that speaks to why it's so important for you to qualify the people you bring onto your roster, because you're getting paid directly from what they produce and what their results are. So that makes
true.
A lot of sense. Okay,
Yes.
cool.
Now it's 1 p.m. Pacific and Sherry's having lunch. On this particular day, she met with an entertainment attorney to discuss details about a client contract for a big role. Even though she has a law background, entertainment law is still different from criminal law.
It gets very complicated, so I'll often refer them to a big entertainment attorney who's used to handling these kind of deals and knows how to redline quickly and all of that kind of stuff, and can get the best deals possible and make counter offers. And they know exactly when to push, because you should always make a counter offer, but sometimes you can make a counter offer, and if they've told you we're stopping here, they'll stop there and they'll go to the next person, their next choice. So an attorney in the entertainment business often knows where they can push with who. Because they've done it so many times.
Nice.
So we'll sit and we'll discuss that kind of stuff. And I like to meet attorneys because there are times that, they're called for. I mean, little deals I can handle or the agent can handle, but oftentimes when we're talking a big deal for many, many years where your client is being tied up. I have a client who just tested this week for a new pilot, a series that's going to be on the new platform, the Apple TV platform,
nice.
the new Apple platform. So that client, needed an attorney to go through everything, because it's a series regular deal that will, involves multiple years, multiple components, relocating, things like that, and a new platform, quite frankly, where the contract hasn't been looked at before.
That's a new space.
Right. So sometimes I'll meet with attorneys.
Would you say you're having lunch with, is it a business-related lunch every day?
I wouldn't say it's every day.
Okay.
No, I work through lunch a lot, actually.
Okay, yeah, that was going to be the next question.
Yeah. I often find I'm eating lunch at my desk while I'm working on stuff. It's a job that really doesn't quit. You can always be working on something. And again, if my clients aren't getting the appointments, then I'm not getting paid. So I need to make sure I'm getting the appointments.
Now it's 2 p.m. and she's visiting a client on set.
My mission is just to be there for my clients, basically, and show them I care and that I'm passionate about what I do. There are sometimes perks. You get to meet certain people on set. Maybe they remember you and you can reach out again at another time. There are some times that there have been actors on set who have reached out to me after I've met them on set. So there's different reasons why I go to set, but the ultimate reason is really that I'm being there for my clients, supporting them.
Gotcha. Right.
Yeah, and I can't always go to every set because sometimes you have a co-star or a guest star role, but series regulars or a lead in a film, I try to go to, or to a show my client is performing in.
So when you're on set, are you ever giving your clients any advice
No.
or letting them do their thing?
I let them do their thing.
Okay,
I'm not an
great.
actor.
Okay, cool.
I
Great.
do, however, when I get a self-tape and I'm not satisfied with something or I think that they missed something, didn't get it right, I will tell them, can you please retape? Either, whether it's that the noise, there's noise in the background, or I don't think you got the comedy gist of it. I'd like you to work on it more, maybe work on it with a coach. Mm-hmm. I have had clients redo tapes and end up booking the role. So,
Awesome.
yeah,
All right.
So you know a thing or two.
Yeah, I know a little bit. I'm not good, but I'm not stepping in on set when there's a director there. There are people there. That's their job, not
So
my
there's
job.
like a certain etiquette that you
I mean, that's a director's job.
Now it's 3 p.m. and she's meeting with a potential client. She talked about how she usually runs these meetings a little earlier in this episode, but now let's get specific.
I usually try to put a kid at ease and ask them general questions first, like, so tell me what's your favorite thing to do? Or, I ask them, what grade are you in? Who's your favorite teacher? What's your favorite subject? To put them a little more at ease.
Mm-hmm.
And then I move on from there and I talk about what if you could be on any TV show or, first I ask them maybe what's your favorite TV show or what's your favorite movie? Undoubtedly, I get Marvel stuff a lot. If you could be on any, movie, what would it be, and or TV show? And they tell me, so I kind of get an idea of what they really like, or if you like comedy better or drama better, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
So that I get those questions out of the kid, and then I bring in the parent. So I often ask the parent what they want from a relationship with a manager, what they're expecting, to see whether we're in
It's a good
sync.
fit.
I have at times met with somebody and I didn't like a vibe. Maybe somebody says something to me that rubs me the wrong way. Like I might have talked about somebody who might be a potential conflict on my roster if I have one other kid like that. And maybe a parent bad mouths that other kid. And that doesn't sit well with me because I think that you've got to maintain a positive. It's not about what the other kid is. It's about what you are.
Yeah.
Right.
So
what are those no conversations like? I mean, you're going to hurt feelings sometimes. How do you go about managing that?
It's generally very businesslike. Oftentimes I will let them know that you're not a good fit for my roster right now. Please feel free to reach out in the future. It's usually an email because I do tell the clients the potential client at the end of the meeting that I'll be sending them a follow-up email.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I don't generally tell anybody in the room that
All right.
you're in.
Right.
But there have been a few occasions where I'm like, I've got to let them know I have this client on my roster. But it's generally a follow-up email, and I say, you know what, you're not a fit for my roster right now. Please feel free to reach out again, maybe when you have more materials, or, maybe you're not a fit for my roster because, when I met you in person, you're a lot taller than I anticipated, and so you fall into a different category where you have a conflict with other clients, that kind of, even though you're younger, you're much taller, that kind of thing.
Would you say most of the time when they get to this stage in your process and it ends up being a no, it's because they don't fit into your roster, or it's because you get a bad vibe, or it's just not what you expected? Or is it a mix? I mean,
I would say it's a mix. I mean, sometimes it's just, it doesn't feel right. And I don't want to take on anyone I'm not passionate about.
Yeah.
And it's not fair to them either.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
should have a rep who's passionate about them. And that's true when I have to let people go too. I mean, if I'm not passionate about you anymore, it's not fair to keep you on my roster. They call it hip pocketing. When you keep somebody on your roster just to keep them on, but you're not really sending them out at all. I
Gotcha.
don't do that.
Yeah.
These are people.
There's
and they
people
have
who do
careers.
that?
There are companies that do that. They will put somebody on their roster because they don't want somebody else to get them. But they really have somebody who they feel is stronger on their roster. So,
Oh, jeez.
Cutthroat.
it's a tough industry.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
From 4 to 6, Sherry is working hard, pitching her clients for roles. At 6 p.m., she has dinner.
Are they working dinners?
A lot of times they are. It depends on where I am. If I have family around and it's time to spend time with family, I carve at the time.
There you go.
But if it's, sometimes I'll take a dinner meeting with somebody too. But mostly, I do give myself a dinner.
Nice. Good. Yeah. You deserve it for sure.
7 to 8, you're doing showcases. What are showcases?
Well, I'll do a couple of things in those hours, depending on the day. But showcases are basically, they're usually a structured performance by various actors, usually arranged by a coach or an acting school, and it could be a university. I've gone to those as well.
Okay.
Where they show you what they have, what the goods are. They'll have, 10, 20 clients in there doing a scene. And I've actually found some clients that way as well.
Nice.
One client I thought was terrific. I didn't expect to find. I called her up, and then next week she was on set for a project.
Oh, very cool. So when you attend these showcases, you had just said that you generally go in with an open mind, but do you ever do your research beforehand on like whoever's going and then like kind of approach them and
Well, it depends on who the acting school is. Sometimes they will send us information about, like they'll send us like little headshots of everybody who's going to be there. And if I see somebody who looks like they might be a fit for my roster, maybe I'll go to see what that person can bring. But sometimes there's really not that much information, but I'll go to it's a University of Michigan showcase, it's their senior showcase, and they've got all of their best top talent in musical theater coming, and I want to go see what they can do.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. There's one in New York called Broadway Workshop, and they do, excellent showcases with little kids. So, if I'm looking for a certain age range from say, I need younger kids from 6 to 10 or something like that, I might go because they might have more of that, at their showcase.
Great.
So,
and then you also mentioned that you might be going on some days to a premiere. How are you helping your client on the red carpet?
it depends. Sometimes
Can you talk about a specific time?
Yeah, I was at Sharp Objects, HBO's Sharp Objects. I have a client who was in that. So she didn't have a publicist. She had a smaller role, but, she was still invited to attend and be on the carpet. And I assisted her by helping her with the paparazzi. I literally cut out a piece of paper with her name and her role on it, and I hold it up before she walks the carpet, and all the photographers take a snapshot of it so they know who it is. So when they refer back to their pictures, they can know who that girl is that they took a shot of. I help her. If there's any interview questions that need to be asked, I'll bring her over there to answer.
What are those coaches coaching for?
Oh, you know what? I don't really do much coaching as far as interview process, the interviews on the carpet, but I do tell them one thing that kids specifically and anyone who's going on the carpet will do is that they'll try too hard to answer the questions. And I think you just need to be yourself and answer the questions, because then it comes out natural and authentic and not like you're trying too hard.
Gotcha.
And it comes out more humble that way, Just I tell them it's like you're having a conversation with me sitting at the table, and I might do a couple of questions back and forth, and I say, see, that's what you need to do.
Right.
But that's the process on the carpet usually.
That wraps up the Shoot for the Star series with Bi-Coastal Talent Manager Sherry Kayne. Next up, learn how Sherry Kayne reinvented herself from a criminal prosecutor to full-time mom to full-time talent manager. Her story shows it's never too late to follow your passion. Stay tuned. You can get to know us and our guests more by keeping up with us on social. Join our community on Instagram and LinkedIn at Experience a Diddle. That's Experience ADITL. There we share our guests' rapid rounds, life hacks, and advice to you, along with pictures and videos from our Manhattan studio, Gotham Podcast Studio. Thanks for listening. To find the show notes with all relevant links and photos for this series, head over to experienceadiddle.com. That's experienceaditl.com.
If you learned something in this episode, please take some time to help our mission by leaving a positive rating and review of the show. Each week, we bring you a new interview series with guests from different jobs and industries. In every series, we live a specific day in the life, hour by hour, experience the career journey, and have a discussion about what we learned. So, don't forget to subscribe.